Hi everyone. I want to spend the next few minutes talking about the uncertainty of life and mainly handling it and living with this hanging over your head. Why I'm bringing this up is when you meet with an accident, you lose your mobility, or even the loss of a job, it feels like the carpet's been pulled out from underneath you and you're left to sort out how you're going to live your life, pay your bills, and just the basic question of what life's going to be like going forward. So I've had to deal with this several times now, with the loss of my hip, having my hip joints replaced, and then not healing with the challenges that my knees have brought to me. So I understand what you may be feeling from this. So when this has happened to me, in fact, I want to back up to 2006. This was when I lost the use of my left hip joint as an adult. No one had told me this was going to happen, but it was going to happen because of the hip disease that I had as a child and the treatment that I was given. And if I'm honest with you, it took around 8 months of grieving the loss of the use of my left hip to let me start living again and enjoying life. And that 8 months was spent with some of the things I just mentioned, figuring out finances, trying to sort out employment, and just the basics of day-to-day life. And that's sort of a starting point that I would suggest for you. At the time, I live in Canada, so I had access to what's called employment insurance sickness benefits. So I had the opportunity to spend a few months focused on physiotherapy. It quickly became obvious that I wasn't going to heal during a 4-month stint of physio. So I thought to myself, I still want to be part of the employment. Is there anything that I still could do? And at that point, I took a job at a call center, taking inbound calls, doing customer care and billing. And I really enjoyed it. I realized that working at a call center is not for everyone. I completely get it. For me, it was the people that I worked with each day that made the job fun and worthwhile going to. As things progressed, I had a surgery and I was supposed to get better for 15 years and then need a hip replacement surgery. It fairly quickly became obvious that I wasn't going to recover, and what was going on was much more complicated than had been anticipated. So I started thinking long term, and this is when I really got focused on modifications to my home and my living space. Very specifically, the first few things that I did were getting a shower seat so that I could take care of my personal hygiene, as well as a handheld shower head so I could wash myself while sitting down. I also got a few grab bars installed in my bathroom. Some are in the shower, some were for the transfer into the shower. They were around $60 each, and they've well paid for themselves. The other part of this was changing the toilet around. Since I wasn't going to recover quickly, it was going to be easier to clean the toilet if I had what's called a toilevator. What that is the same idea as an elevator. It's about a 3.5-inch piece of plastic that the toilet's mounted on that permanently raises it up. It makes it much easier to get on and off the toilet when you have hip problems. So taking care of the essentials of life was the next step for me. It became apparent that as I moved towards surgery that there was a chance I wasn't going to recover. One of the friends I have is a counselor in town, and he had suggested I start researching what's involved in applying for a long-term disability. And I want to be frank with you, it's not the ideal situation. I didn't grow up to get onto a long-term disability. But certainly when I needed it in my life, I was really glad that it was available. It also meant the practical reality, is there enough money for rent, food, transportation, and the other parts that go with housing? And thankfully, where I was at already had provision for this. As I was applying for these disabilities, it became obvious to me that some of these things come down to wording. Unfortunately, I also realized that people who have a mental health illness have a much harder time of getting onto a disability, even if there is a strong physical component to it. If you're not on a disability yet, but you think you might end up on one, I highly encourage you to seek out help for your mental health, so that if an application was being filled out for you, it could honestly be stated that your mental health is under control and it's the physical ailments that are causing you not to be in the workforce. And I'll tell you, that tip's worth gold. I've heard it different times how people struggle to get on disability because there's nagging doubt if they still could work if their mental health was in order. I genuinely understand that a person's mind can stop them from being in the workforce and really stop them in day-to-day life long before their body gives out. But then there's the situations where the body's given out and you're just responding to the stress. So I encourage you to take the step of opening yourself up to either some friends that you can trust, or that you join a few groups, maybe on Facebook or wherever, that are specifically for your illness or situation. So you have people that you can talk to that will understand without you having to spend hours and hours explaining yourself. I realize this isn't easy. I realize there might be past hurt where it's hard to open up to what's vulnerable in life. There genuinely are people that care out there. If you can't express that you need help, people aren't going to automatically know that you're struggling. And it's one of those things where if you think if there's either people in your life that have substance to them that will be sensitive to you, or another way of doing it would be posting maybe a 4 to 5 sentence introduction and see how you're being received. And so maybe you don't share everything all at once, but you take a step to say that you're going through this, and over time as relationships build, you share more. It's a whole lot easier going through challenging times when you're not by yourself, or else you know that you have the moral support of other people. I understand that it does mean being vulnerable, but when you're not going through it by yourself, there's peace of mind that if you need someone to talk to, there is someone there for you who will take a few minutes and maybe sit down over coffee or green tea and be able to share what's going on and let you know that you're still cared about as a person. The long term of this, and what I found in my own life, is that it was easy for people to help me in the short term, giving time, preparing meals, coming to visit me. When this turns into a long-term situation, it's harder for a core group of people to keep giving time. And so it's important that your base of support grows, so there's lots of people to draw from in providing the practical help for you. This is one of those situations where almost the saying of "it takes a village to raise a child," the same thing applies for someone going through a long-term disability or illness. Not everything's going to be appropriate for you to share with each person. People may be uncomfortable sharing if a woman's going through her period, or some of the stuff that I've gone through, I've found a lot easier sharing with other male friends of mine. So you may need to use some discretion in what you do and what you say to other people and how they fit into your life. One of the very positive things that I've found is that in our day and age, there's the option to do shopping online. So where I live, I can go buy non-perishable groceries and have them shipped to my home, and there's not a charge for this if you match a certain criteria, like spending $45. So it's not hard to spend $45 on groceries. It just takes a little bit of planning. There's been people that have offered to do grocery shopping for me as well, and I think that it's a reasonable request that is from one human to another. If you say that you're needing help with grocery shopping, it certainly seems that someone would help you with this. Although, as I've just said, it may take a few people to keep you going, like on a rotating basis. The next practical reality of this is getting your budget balanced. Either, if you have enough money, that's great. You may need to consider moving. There's the option of crowd fundraising online, or even a benefit dinner through a church putting it on, or something like this. My disability caseworker gave me a tip that other people could buy items for me. Like, just an example, if I was needing a treadmill, a fundraiser could happen by one of my friends collecting money, make the purchase, and then gift me a treadmill so that I never technically touched the money. So it may be something like this that you need to consider doing if there's equipment that you're needing. Another route that I did was let secondhand stores know of specific equipment that I was needing, like an over-the-bed table. That's a table that's kind of a C shape, and then it rolls in and sits over top of your bed. I also let the local hospital know that I was needing this, and it just happened that the local hospital was upgrading their over-the-bed tables, and they were able to give me one that they would have otherwise discarded. So certainly, there's a venue for asking for help. I do need to caution you not to be entitled or feeling that the world owes you everything. You need to be sincere in your asking that you need help, and not letting the emotional component of it have you begging. So you need to make sure your emotions are in check when you're producing a list of what is needed. You know, I own an electric hospital bed, and I'll tell you, it's been one of the best investments of money that's been spent on me. Certainly, if you're finding that you're in bed a lot, this is something that may be able to help you, and especially give you the best quality of life possible. There are two styles of electric hospital beds. The less expensive one doesn't include the motor for vertical elevation. A hand crank is what's used instead. Periodically, these come up and someone's wanting to give one away. You know, a free cycle group is another area that you could post where you're needing a specific item. I also am actually sitting in a lift chair. So it's an electric motor that makes the chair help me stand up. It also does the reclining function. That's another tool that's been invaluable for me using in my own journey. They aren't cheap. This one was gifted to me, thankfully. It was brand new, but someone was admitted to a nursing home, and the need was known in the community that I was in need of one, and it worked its way to me from someone knowing someone that was going to give it away to someone who was genuinely needing it. What I want to close on is this. As I've gone through the various setbacks in my life, I've broke the challenges down into manageable pieces. So if you look at the whole picture, it's easy to get overwhelmed and not think of solutions. But if you're breaking it down by topic or theme, for example, like what I talked about with personal hygiene and bladder and bowel movements, it becomes manageable in working out solutions. And if you build small pieces up, it quickly becomes like a skyscraper where you're able to figure out your life and how you're going to manage the logistics of your day-to-day life. As hard as it may be, I want to encourage you to not isolate yourself from the world. Certainly, it's helped me a lot going out to a gym to use the swimming pool. I understand that it's not going to be practical for people to be doing it near as frequently as myself. But if you go there and you stick it out, I bet you at the 2-month mark, you'll begin to find out and figure out who the regulars are, and gradually relationships will build, and your support base will grow. I only want to encourage you to do the best for your life that you're individually capable of, and work at this one day at a time. It does get easier. There is a really high level of commitment to get through this. It becomes a new normal for life. And confidence will grow as you're getting things situated in your life and sorting out the logistics of day-to-day life. If you'll keep at it, it will work for you. It's just a long-term commitment that you need to make to yourself. And I want you to know that you are worth it, and you still have something to contribute to the world, even with this going on in your life. Thanks for the time that you've spent with me today. Bye for now.